following program on Ada Derana 24 is classified for general audience. It is intended for all ages. It contains little or no violence, no strong language, and little or no sexual dialogue or situations.
Good evening, and you're joining with us on another episode on Business Best, and this is a platform where we showcase the best in the business, and we will be introducing you to people who have excelled in their particular field in order to showcase their latest developments in their respective industry. Now today on the show we'll be talking about a Silicon Valley local IT company that's based in the US but also has an office here in Sri Lanka as well, and that is Zone 24/7. Now to talk about this, we have the CEO of the company, who is Neschae Fernando. Neschae, thank you very much for taking the time to join me on the show today. I know that you're here in Sri Lanka for just about 10 days and you're taking the flight tonight itself, and amidst this busy schedule, I'm glad that we were somehow able to find the time to talk about Zone 27. Thank you again.
No, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
All right, so to start off the discussion, Neschae, I want you to tell a little bit about what Zone 24 is all about and the services that y'all are providing.
No, absolutely. So Zone 24/7, we are a digital transformation specialist in producing innovative and meaningful business solutions. We provide high-level IT consulting, engineering services for those innovative and forward-looking companies. For example, we create different initiatives. We work with lots and lots of folks across global markets to create solutions like RFID solutions, warehouse management solutions, and really a core thing is we provide solutions, what customers are really looking for, actually.
So where have you all based your offices?
So we have offices in Sri Lanka. This is primarily our development center or workforce here, and of course in the US actually. So we have a couple offices, different locations there, and we have offices, folks, sales arms in the UK as well.
And would you like to tell me a little bit about what your final vision is all about and the mission as well?
It is, and I want to take a step back as well, because what's really important as well, because really fundamental to our vision of the organization and what we want to, what we are striving for is really producing great, powerful IT concepts, really what the market is asking for. And it'll help to tell you a story about the genesis of Zone, actually. I'm actually a second generation, US citizen, actually born in the US, born and raised. But really the inception, Zone 24/7 came from our founding father, actually my father, the CEO. He was actually Lankas Fernando. He had a vision, not starting with him, but going back to my grandma, actually. She was from Kochikade, Negumbo area, right? And really what happened at this time is that they immigrated because at that time the opportunities were different. It was a similar situation as today, but what she really said, she said, so my dad, he studied in England, went to the US afterwards, but what she really said is that, hey, you're leaving now, but I want you to go back and do something for the country. Do something for the country in any shape or form. Lavin had a great career. He grew different organizations in the US and other places, got a tremendous experience. But in the 90s, so what happened is that we created the signature pad for payments, and that he started a company here called AppPOS. And in the late 90s, was just an internet boom, that type of thing. But what happened is that Sri Lanka was a very, very different country at the time with different sets of challenges, some civil unrest, right? But remembering, and at that time in the 90s, he led a VC-funded company, and that company today is today is Zebra Technologies here. It was AppPOS. It was a VC-funded company. It's went to Symbol Technologies, now Zebra. But what had happened is that at that time, people were saying, oh, you need a cost reduction strategy. People were going to India left and right. But he remembered what his mother said, and she said, do something for the country. And actually, he went there, and he said, "Let me go to India," because that's what the investors wanted. But he came back and said, "Look, I need to go set up something and help people in Sri Lanka." And that was really the premise and the birth of Zone, 24/7.
That's nice to hear that the roots are coming here from Sri Lanka itself. But you, I must say, you were born and raised in USA. So what made you fall in love with Sri Lanka and want to still contribute to our Lankan society?
You know, it is actually I don't know, it's part of this broader vision, this plan actually instilled from my grandma. You know, it was actually weekly calls, you know, actually afterwards. She would always talk on the phone every Sunday, and she would say, okay, she would tell me how things are, you know, again, sharing all the good stuff, what happens, you know, in the US, the UK, but also sharing and really keeping me grounded, because telling me, hey, what can you do what can you do for other people? So I visited Sri Lanka, she came with me, I visited trips here, and I got that experience every time I walked through an airport. At that time, you know, coming at a young age, I saw, wow, you know, the world is so big, because sometimes staying in the US, you know, you're isolated, your vision is just, okay, what is there? And I know there's that proverb, frog in a well. I was a frog in a well in the US, in California, right? But actually on this topic, I have to say, I'm proud to say, as you know, very recently, I got my Sri Lankan citizenship as well. So again, you know, that's something I'm quite proud of, because it is actually, though I was born in the US born second generation citizen, you know, it was important to see, okay, that if I'm going to come here and also invest and look at this, you know, I realize the beauty of what's in the country here. I look at, I even went to some of the areas like One Golf Face, you know, it's amazing actually. Looking at the development, I just stood there. It's been a while because of all the situation what's happened since I've come here, but the tremendous development that I've seen from back actually about 3 years ago, before COVID and all that stuff, till now, it's amazing, it's tremendous. I stand up, I look, wow, this is like how Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, better than any malls in the US, you know? So it is nice to see how that is growing, and to see in 10, 20 years, this is going to be a powerhouse. It's just a matter of we need to make sure that we have the right people, the right,
That's
you know,
exactly.
coming here
I would
to
like
make
to
sure.
agree with you on that, because I also feel like the mindsets of Sri Lanka also should be changed, because a lot of people are not, you know, willing to change per se. The rate of development might not be as fast as, you know, compared to the international nations, but we are developing. Now, since you are based in US also, and you've been working with, you know, so many countries around the globe, and comparing to everything else, how do you think Sri Lanka is faring now in terms of the IT industry?
Well, you know, on the IT industry, that is a great question. What happens is that it's actually quite on par, actually. Part of the reason why is that we have phenomenal in Sri Lanka. Again, I'm saying we because, you know, I'm proud of the citizenship, but we have great universities, you know, both public, private sector. And, you know, some of these are affiliated with actually universities in the UK and other regions as well. It's part of the curriculum, and even actually just today, actually this morning, we actually had some training programs, you know, trying to give the students practical experience, just so that they become more marketable, ready to work right away. Because, you know, going to the university is great, but you learn a lot of theory. But the Sri Lankan system's great in the fact that one is that we have the ability to work at practical experience, and that's part of the job requirement. And two, also, I think, you know, I always kind of joke with a lot of people that when I talk about Sri Lanka, because a lot of people don't know where Sri Lanka is in the U.S. And I have to say, I do have to say, oh, you know, it's like India, but it's the island off the nation. But I say we have better food, and also our English is phenomenal. And I say the English that we have is even better than the U.S. I speak with a Californian accent, you hear. And I guess, you know, I need to probably speak slower so folks will understand. But you see, the Sri Lanka has a British English, so it's phenomenal. I think the ability to communicate, articulate with clients is superb. Actually, we've had great success there because I think the ways that people work and communicate, try to understand what clients want. I think that's very much appreciated.
So how can you describe the knowledge available here in Sri Lanka now compared to the international nations and the education we have here? How do you think that the Lankan workers here are contributing to your organization?
Oh, very much, actually. I think, you know, because here there's a different perspective because, you know, Sri Lanka has 20 plus million, you know, only. It's not going to be like India anytime soon, nor should we be in India, because we have to think a little bit differently. Thinking differently is about thinking about, we don't have the numbers game, but how can we as a smaller nation take more actually take more thinking an R&D type of approach to solve problems. And that, going back to customers, it's nice because typically when a lot of times customers don't know what they want actually. What the customers have is they'll say, oh, I want this, that, A, B, and C. So they think they know, and they'll say, in order to do it, I want an engineer, and I want 3 engineers, I want an architect, program manager, these type of things. But a lot of times you really have to ask, okay, so what are the business problems here? What do you really want to do here? And that inquisitive nature that's inherent in the Sri Lankan culture that we have is always good, actually. Again, there's pros and cons. I'll say that. I truly believe in the balance of everything we have, because also that sometimes, we could be more forceful, actually, learning, so while it's good to understand, but also remember that the customer is not always correct as well, but, you have to just set bounds. But it's always a cultural gap here. It's always how do we build that bridge here? And I think that's how the Sri Lankan, the talent here is very good though. But it's also the respect for the businesses and all that. That zone we do, actually one of the core pillars is also making sure that anyone who walks through the door has a good business acumen as well, has a good businessman and respect for one another. I think that's key and paramount to anything we do.
Okay, the next follow-up question is, I want to ask about how Zone 24 is creating that culture within the organization, but then before that we will have to go into a short commercial break. We'll be back soon. You're watching Business Best. Welcome back to Business Best, and we are in discussion with Neschae Fernando, who is the CEO of Zone 24/7. Now, I think, Neschae, we took off with a segue leading towards the culture of the organization that you have. I want you to describe about what culture are you promoting within your organizations and how do you train your people?
No, absolutely. That's a great question. Obviously, we are actually a family-owned and run business, so we like to permeate that down through the organization. But as we grow, actually, my goal is also to have anyone who walks through the zone doors to be a world-class leader, right? And part of this is that with families, right, it's really important to make sure that we tell them what they need to do, and also make sure that while we have a good family-based culture based on mutual respect and understanding, it's a matter of making sure that we can sometimes agree to disagree and have those open types of discussions where we understand that, hey, there's different ways to approach different problems. And it's really important that we come together, we have put all the items on the table, and then we agree, and then we come to some other consensus, or we work together. Because again, we have to recognize, and I do trust that we're all on the same team here. We have different ways, different styles to approach problems. I don't want to say there's one that's right versus one that's wrong. It's never the case. It's really a happy balance in between, and really the evolution of where the companies are, and really when we started, the type of culture and also the type of of management style there, it could be different than where it is today. Because as you grow, you may need to have other people coming into the organization, trying to figure out, okay, you have this role, this is what you do, this is what you do. You did it yesterday, it may have to change tomorrow as well. So again, but being just open and honest and transparent with others, because I think that's really key and fundamental to our success. Because then we do have an open door policy, but with that, I do want to respect everyone's time, because I know that if they're coming in and talking to me when I'm supposed to be at another meeting, I won't be doing justice for my next meeting or so. So I want to promote a culture that we respect one another and also are efficient in delivering what we can. Because I want to train and make sure that anyone, again, who walks through our doors are world-class leaders. And really part of that is that we are born, just like when we are our kids, we have, I have 2 young kids, but I'm hoping they'll be the best, but I have to shape them in the right way that I can. And really that's my job, not just for my kids, but also all the kids that we have are all our associates, because it is really a family, and I look at them, a lot of mentors and good people, that helped us grow so far.
All right. So how has your experience been so far working with our Sri Lankans?
It's been good, actually. I think part of the experience here is that there are different cultures actually, because even within the U.S., there's a culture from the west coast to the east coast. It's different, but sometimes with Sri Lankans, I think everyone's so polite actually. Maybe the hospitality, the hospitable nature of everyone, and it's great actually. It's nice, but sometimes I think that why didn't you just tell me? Because instead of telling me that if someone wants to say, oh Neschae, you're looking a bit chubby today. That's not sometimes a nice thing. I don't really mind it actually, because I like that direct feedback, because then I'll look in the mirror and say, hey, you could fix that actually. And I think that's why my experience has been really very positive, the welcoming nature, but sometimes the directness, because it is, there's two sides of a coin, and also different pros and cons of every approach here. Because what we want to do is that I want people to be able to come open, tell me to my face, because I do recognize that the world is small. Again, we remember that the world is small. Everyone who walks through the door is going to be a world-class leader. But just be open, because next time around, because I want to continue working with everyone that I've known. And I think that's going to be the important part that we have. And just a sense of mutual trust and respect is a key thing. Okay, I think that's phenomenal here.
Yeah. So now, are there any ways and means that our local IT companies would be able to partner with Zone 24/7?
Yes, and in fact, that's a great question, but we're actually already doing it too. Since inception, what's been core and fundamental to our success is really innovative partner networks, because it is this mindset that, hey, I can't do everything. There's people who could do certain things better than me, but partnerships come in many different forms and shapes. For example, university partnerships and alliances, vendor partnerships, relationships, our client partners as well. These are just a few, but for example, if I have there are certain areas that are not my domain, and I could help out some other organizations, for example, support shared services. These are things that are essential for my business as I want to grow from cradle to grave and create things to support. There are other companies here who are very good in that, call center, all that kind of stuff. They can help with that. Additionally, we may have a lot of opportunities that are coming in. We have to turn them down, because we can't, even if it's, competing in our industry, I really don't look at it as competition, because, again, that 1 + 1 or 1 + 1 is 3 mentality. We need to continue to promote that. And that's why, a quote competitor can be a friend, because, hey, let's work on this together. Because again, Indian companies, they are known, they have great partner networks, and that's been their success. And we should do the same actually. When it comes, so I talked about the vendors, but also the university partners are so important as well, because again, that goes into this training program about continuous education, learning, and being the best, because the IT industry is so dynamic and changes so frequently, because so the education system, learning something, what you're doing without practical knowledge, you're gonna, if you just take the theoretical knowledge here, you're gonna be missing the boat and a couple steps behind. And that's why we've instilled a couple programs working with local universities and training them as interns, getting them on real world problems with tools and the best practices today as well. So they come out, not only graduate from the university, and they actually come out with some practical knowledge and ready to work and going into the real workforce.
All right. So something that you mentioned, Neschae, was that the IT industry, it's very dynamic and it needs to keep on changing, But now working with Sri Lanka, how can you describe, do you think Sri Lanka is keeping in line with the international level of technology advancements? Have you had any challenges regarding that?
I told you the main, so I'll answer in two ways. First off, I think the university systems are phenomenal. It's great. One of the core challenges today, what we are seeing, again, due to this whole macroeconomic, this global environment we're seeing, again, I think there's a little big ripple effect, but brain drain, a big thing. I think that is a huge thing in the Sri Lankan IT community, because, how can we, it becomes, like you said earlier, could it become a training factory? We train out folks there, and then afterwards they go to the industry, right? And then afterwards they go out to the industry, but not Sri Lankan, they go to other places, Australia, other places. But I have mixed feelings, and I think it's actually a little bit of column A, column B, where we need to do both. We need those people to go out there, right, and to go back, much like how Zone was started. Started in, I'm second generation, right, but Sri Lankan, I'm half Sri Lankan, Sri Lankan citizen. I went to the U.S. and we're coming back here, and we come back here, and thus Zone was born. But we need that. But in order for those people to be successful, we do need the workforce or people, brilliant minds here to stay here as well. And then, I have this actually funny story I always tell, because when it comes to that, I have people who are asking me, our client partners, VPs, execs, they say, oh, Neschae, can I go and work in Sri Lanka, right? Because there's a saying, in the US, it's a high-paced life. It's very, very high-paced. People work till they're 65, save up some money. They work like dogs, like 18-hour days, working, playing the rat race, really. Right? They make up some money, they get some money, and at that age, they go and they say, oh, let me go now and sit back, relax on a tropical paradise, right? But the thing is that when I look at the economy and how Sri Lanka, you look around, we're living in a tropical paradise here. You go out, in the weekends, and there's, you could hear the different birds, the different animals in the background. So that's something not to forget actually as well. Because again, thought it relevant because it is really fascinating that people are leaving, but also don't forget the beauty of what's inside, what's inside Sri Lanka.
All right, Neschae, I think we're coming to the end of our program as well, but can you tell me now, you being in the IT industry, what was the biggest challenge you faced? Now, because now working in Sri Lanka has gone through a lot of obstacles, come from the COVID pandemic to the economic crisis to the political instability and so on. So what were some of the challenges that you faced considering the IT industry?
That's a great question. There are actually and let me answer it like this, because we actually have different challenges. Because if you look at you mentioned all the pandemic was there, the global macroeconomic and climate, the worries, right? It does have a different, it has a ripple effect, and it does make it actually a little bit different because there's when they say the U.S. sneezes, sometimes when everyone else catches a cold, right? But actually, we see that because of the uncertainty in the marketplace, and in the U.S. where there's different looming recession, all that stuff coming up, that people are still looking to find ways that they have committed to projects and programs. How can we continue to execute it? A good way, again, there's different work from home areas, but how can we? But then that presents an opportunity for the Sri Lankan workforce as well. And some of this is that we see engineers who are working with these individuals, and again, there's cost arbitrage, and also working out how can we work remotely. Because working out of America from home is the same as working from Sri Lanka, at home as well. Again, one of the key things we have to make sure that we don't lose sight of, working from home is great, but keeping the family type of culture when we're working together as a team, I think that also is a big cultural thing that we need as well.
All right, Neschae. Again, thank you very much. Unfortunately, this is all the time we have on the program, but I'm so glad that you were able to describe everything about Zone 24/7. And also, I'm appreciative that, you're providing these opportunities to our local people as well, and to, make use of the talent available here. Again, thank you very much, and I wish you all the very best with Zone 24/7 as well. And have a safe flight tonight.
Oh, yeah. No, thanks for having me.
All right, so that was our episode on Business Best tonight. We will be back again next week with another product or service that would interest you. Just in case you couldn't watch us on air, you can always rewatch by catching us on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Ada Derana English. I'm Suzanne Shanali. Stay safe and have a good night.